Hi, Matt Stait here again from the Festival of Martial Arts, and today I've got Keith Leban with me. So, hi Keith, how are you?
Yeah, fine, fine, thanks.
Great, thanks for coming and joining us today. So,
Yeah, no, it's fantastic.
excellent. So, for the people that may not have heard of you, can you give us a
Hmm.
brief overview of who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. My name's Keith Bihan, and brief overview of myself is I did martial arts, karate, judo, all of that. Probably back since the early late 60s. Growing up in Brixton, you sort of working class area, quite rough, but maybe not as some people think. But it was quite important to be able to have some form of presence. I call it not necessarily. I call it physical presence, but just some form of presence. And I think karate, the martial arts achieved all of that, as it were, to some degree. And then whilst I was there in Brixton, I used to do some boxing and wrestling with the some guys that ran the sports centre there. And the thing is, sometimes they would talk about, I bumped into one a couple of years ago. He said, we were the first mixed martial artists. I said, oh, yeah, I suppose we were. Because obviously, them days, people didn't sort of think of them things, or maybe they probably did, but it was just that sort of time of era. And so, yeah, sort of rapidly moving forward, as it were. I trained with some really interesting people. Tommy Otani was the son of that, and sort of some other people, but I always say some people think it's the journey. I think it's more about the people you meet and the
Yeah, yeah,
characters you meet, on that way. And so I've got up. I've sort of achieved some downgrades here and all of that. Although that's to some degree is what it is. I spent basically the last 30 years, the last 27 years in law enforcement, although it wasn't police, but I want to stress that. But it's just to give you a bit of a flavour that I did some safety training there, and I did all sorts of things, conflict management, so I've had that bit of an other background as well. So it's a nice gel together, I think. And the martial arts, sometimes people think it's all about the physical, but it's more so about the dialogue and sometimes the calming and the mental, as it were. You know what I mean?
yeah. No, absolutely.
So what I plan to do at the festival, actually, I would like to do two things. One, first of all, is because I coach boxing now, and I have done sort of for the last 8 or 9 years, a number of clubs, be it one club was closed and all of that. And I still train in the jutsu methods, I call them. But that's a group of training friends. It's people I've grown up with, and we just have. It's not exactly a club. And I think, well, at these type of events, you've always got people teaching jutsu, karate, jiu-jitsu, aki, whatever it is. So I thought, well, what I do is I'd like to give people, and I've done it for the martial arts planet, is give people who are interested come along, and I'll give a very basic session on the basic moves or techniques of boxing. The first part I do, which some would say it could be transferable, it's a bit about what I call the inoculation side, which is the wrong word to use, but it's to get used to that flinch and how maybe not to, and getting used to that touch thing. I've got a couple of drills which people could possibly transfer to their clubs. You might think, no, I'm not interested in that, or that's no, thanks for that, and then I'll go into the basic skills, and then I'm going to cover I'm going to try and focus on a bit of footwork, and then maybe focus a bit on the jabs. I think that's very important. And then at the end, that I'll do a bit of clinch, a wee bit, but nothing too. So what I'm hoping then when people leave, they will say, oh, I've had a real good sort of like introduction on the art and the sport. So, well, maybe when I join a club, I'll go back, or maybe, no, that's not for me, or at least I've got a bit of I always say that because of a feel for it. I call it a taster session. So it's a bit probably how someone would turn up at a club, never done it before. They would probably do that type of thing in that. I don't know how long I've got, but I've budgeted on an hour.
Yeah. So yeah, it's going to be somewhere around there. So
Yeah.
Um,
So it's really that type of thing, and I think it's quite important to actually sort of put it across. I'll probably, it's not so much. I want to create a very good coaching environment, and I want to set out that people get the coaching experience. So it's not a training session. So if people think I'm going to come along, well, at the pad for 45 minutes, forget it. You're better off having a cup of tea or saving yourself for something else. Because to me, that's training.
okay.
This is coaching. So when I coach, it has to be the atmosphere of such that people are sort of quite relaxed. They're sort of not necessarily cream crackered, and they, you know, can actually pick up what's going on. Their mind is not tired. Their mind is open to what's being coached. And I think that's how I tend to split my sessions. And I think that's how clubs tend to split sessions now. There's the sort of warm up, there's a bit of coaching, right? Now let's get on the and that. So you won't pick up any new pad drills if you're looking from it. Also, because as I found out, like a lot of things in life, you go to different clubs, and different clubs have their different way of doing things. So the way that I'm going to do it is not necessarily a club in Mansfield would do it, or a club in, you know what I mean? There's a very broad, well, you know, it's a very, I call very broad brush. And the latest clubbers are quite funny. Said, well, I'll do the pads. How do you want to do them? He said, well, just do how you want to do them. You know what I mean? So some people do the cliche, the Floyd Mayweather. We do a bit of that. Some people use it slightly different. And it's a bit of an individual thing. So that's the type of thing that I want to put across. This is me. Yeah, it's not necessarily someone else, X or that down the road. So I think that's quite an important, to see that. So what I don't want to do is build people's expectations up, and then they say, well, that's not what I signed up for. Yeah, so it's clear. Know very little about it. Interested in having a go? No, having a go. Let's have a go. Yeah, you know, same as me. When I'll be down at the festival, I'm gonna have a go at some things. I fancy that big broadsword.
Yeah. Well,
I've never done that before. Well, you know, that's what it's about. I mean, with respect to others, you know, wish twisted. I laugh at it all, but in many respects, I want to go down there and sort of, I tried that. Well, yeah, hang on, that looks interesting. Or just listen to someone. The second thing I want to do is a bit more on. I want to facilitate something. I call it, are you seeing what I'm seeing? And it's a bit about being like a street craft. It's about seeing things at a distance and trying to read the language and sort of doing sort of distance finding, plus some sort of, I call it how to pick up certain things on people. And that will encourage a couple of what I call not physical exercises, but little like memory exercises, all sorts of things. And I'll do little bit of things like, they had a report of crime, something completely different, you know. So, but I'm not going to people. I won't just sit around and have a chat, so people can pick up things. Say, oh, that's interesting. What about that? Or, oh, actually, yeah, I've had that. So that's going to be a bit more. Are you seeing what I'm seeing? Because not everyone. If you go down the street, not everyone sees it as you see it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, true. Yeah, true.
Some of the work I've been involved in, I mean, used to know. You know, you sort of, I pick up things maybe 100 yards away. How do I do that? How does that happen? But it just happens. But it's maybe something that, I'm not saying you could teach, it makes some people be aware of that actually, the more distance you have between you and trouble, the more distance you have to make evasive action. But that's bread and butter basics anyway. So it's just to give someone something different. A couple of games I've got set up would actually be quite funny, hopefully. So they get a bit of a laugh, as hopefully, you know, because, you know, learning is enjoyment as well. You want to be able to sit and think, oh, yeah, you know, maybe not, but I've had a bit of a laugh and, you know, the guy's okay or whatever. So
yeah, you want it to be fun. Yeah, absolutely. And the, you know, the ethos of the festival is exactly how you described it, which is for people just to have a go, have a try at things, maybe bolt some stuff onto their existing things, have a go at stuff they wouldn't normally have a go at. So that's all great. And that'll fit in, you know, sort of really nicely with the overall. So a little bit more about you, if that's all right.
Yeah.
So it's unusual, not always, but it is quite unusual to meet somebody that started in Jitsu Do kind of martial arts and then move into boxing. Normally people don't tend to have that transition. So how did that happen for you?
Yeah, life is strange. And I was approached, actually, I was working somewhere and I was approached by a guy. He said, oh, Keith, you know, you do all that martial arts stuff. And I said, well, yeah, sort of. Why? He said, well, we're trying to get together, we're trying to get some boxing coaches, some people who've got some basic type of movement skills and train them as boxing coaches, because we want to get it into schools and we want to get it into youth. You know what I mean? So at that time, and even now, there's more demand than the supply. Although now England boxing is sort of ratcheting up and they're running courses and all sorts. But it was probably at a hiatus time. And I thought, oh, yeah, why not? I'll give it a go. You know, sounds quite interesting. And that's how I made that. I call it, I've got the separation, but that's how, when I put my coaching head on, I'm coaching this.
Yeah.
I'm not coaching a bit of this and a bit of that. You know what I mean? So it's pure as you would get the ABA or however you would get the syllabus. So it was just thought, oh, I'll try it. Yeah, sounds interesting. Gives me an active, and at a certain age in life, you want something to keep you fit.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
So I thought it's easy to walk around and teach. I don't mean that disrespectfully to any of us. You know what I mean? It's just it's the nature of the beast, isn't it? Really, But yeah, so if you say it's quite good, so you get a bit of a get a bit of a physical workout and that. But it is that. So I'm quite fortunate, if that's the right word, or able to is probably the right word, to able to make that Damoclesian sword where when I'm doing in the Shibu, the Jotsu, that's it. When I'm doing down the club, that's it. Yeah. Never try and show me. And that's how I do it. I think it's important for me to have that. Some people like to push it together. That's fine. In fact, we had one instructor who's quite boxy, so he's quite alarmed. I think he'd jump in Jack Salat because he just and then he'd say, "Oh, baby, do," and it was like quite the funny moments. So, but no, for me, it's the complete separation. So, and it wasn't all that hard really, because having an initial undergrown of a karate do background, then some of the things, reverse punch and junzuki, which is the front, the wado, it's actually getting that wasn't too difficult in that. So, I think it happened reasonably well, and I had that separation. So I think it's important for me. The guys are going to get boxing coaching. They're not going to get me with adding a few things on, or maybe you could trip them there, or moving to something there.
Yeah. Could I just ask you a moment? Oh, sorry, you've come back again. You froze there for a little while. So yeah. we could hear what you were saying, which is fine, but the screen froze. Obviously,
okay, yeah.
Obviously, there's a bit of thunder and lightning going on in the background.
So there is, yeah.
whether that's partly to blame. So yeah. Well, that was sort of where I was going with the sort of next question in regards to overlap, and there are definite things that the traditional martial arts can learn from boxing, and I also think that there are things that boxing can learn from martial arts. So, but when you said about footwork earlier on as part of what you'd be looking at, I think footwork is one of the absolute crucial elements that we can really learn a great deal about. So, how does that look for you when you're teaching footwork? What are the sort of core principles that you're looking for?
The core principles is the stable base, rear foot up, moving forward, back side, pivoting, slipping under, slipping there. So the footwork, I spend a lot of time on, although it won't be boredom in terms of there, because you've only got an X amount of time, but it's give people the feel of it. And I think fluid footwork is very, very useful, especially if you're even in a personal protection, where the use of force comes in. Sometimes being able to move back, duck out the way, or move out, it's very, very important. I'm not putting that into it, but footwork, I'll add some classical sayings. Actually, one of my ones is, good footwork gets you out of trouble, bad footwork gets you into trouble. You know what I mean? So it's a bit that, and if I think we always say reflection back, if we reflect back to how the jutsu arts in karate do, well, it was taught, in many respects, maybe for whatever reason, the footwork so much wasn't really taught as much. Maybe you just had to pick it up, but maybe that's how the Japanese sort of learned it. Does that sort of make place your foot here, and you think, oh, how does that work? Because one of the things that I picked up when I've had privilege to train with Dr. Maka Hasumi Sensei, and he's retired now, as it were, and always made me done this technique. This was like when you watch a magician's hands move, you think, where it was happening, and we were all getting it wrong, and that's nice. But then the translator said, don't watch the hands. You all watch it. You've got to watch the feet move. I thought, yeah, that's a good point, actually. It's the feet that get you there. No matter what you say to get into the distance, it's the feet. So if you've got the footwork right, yeah, I could, it was like a slight little mini light bulb.
Yeah.
Being the right distance to hit, the right distance to sort of slightly out of the way, or whatever way you do it. So I think, that's why I want to spend spend a wee bit of time on that, just to give people the idea of what the different types of footwork is,
Yeah, of
So
course, and that's a great addition to anybody's training. A little bit of boxing footwork can really make a difference. So, so yeah, that's great. Now, in the meantime, between now and then, if people want to reach out to you, how can they do so?
yeah, it's via my Hotmail. It's Keith's Friends at hotmail.co.uk.
Okay, yeah. So I will put
I
that
mean,
in
obviously, I
the.
haven't got a phone number because I don't run a business or I don't do anything else. It's
Yeah,
pure.
no, that's fine. I will.
I say pure entertainment.
Yeah,
No,
that's fine.
pure,
Not a
pure.
problem. So I will put that into the description for those that want it, if you want to do that. And yeah, and we look forward to having you at the festival, my friend. Thank you very much for coming on today and chatting.
Yeah, thanks very much, Matt. So take care. Look forward to seeing you.
You're welcome. Cheers, mate. Bye.